Hello ladies and gentlemen, Tevaron here with a brief video for you. Just wanted to address a couple of things. First, about the decks that I feature on my channel. I do my best to only put up decks that I've tested and had a decent amount of success with, which leads me into item number 2. What does success mean? Well, for me, it means that the deck is winning more than it's losing. It does not, however, mean that a deck is unbeatable. In a non-broken format, there should be no unbeatable decks. Broken formats are unfun. As someone who has played through their fair share of broken Magic formats, I can say this with certainty. If R&D has missed something and allowed a combination of cards to exist in a format that can make a certain deck unbeatable, or even have too high a win percentage, say 90% or higher, and I'm not giving an exact figure here, just an example, that is a bad format. Bad for players, and bad for Magic as a whole. Broken formats lead to discontent. They lead to players quitting the game due to frustration and tedium. I point to the days of Standard Affinity and more recently Caw-Blade as an example. These were times when one deck dominated all of Standard, and even if you built a deck specifically to beat these decks, you most likely couldn't, or you made yourself so weak against the other people trying to beat the decks that you couldn't win there. In the case of Caw-Blade, the format grew so stagnant and inbred that at the end, right before the banning of Jace the Mind Sculptor and Stoneforge Mystic, the Caw-Blade decks were having to be tuned specifically to beat other Caw-Blade decks, because that's all you faced. These broken formats led to people leaving the game in droves. They were horrible for the game, and tournament attendance was abysmal. Diversity is a good thing. When many different decks are capable of winning, it makes for a much better game than if there are only one or two decks worth playing. Now, I know I spent a lot of time on that point, but I needed to say all of that to say this. Some players can get very defeatist and form incorrect opinions about a deck or a format based entirely on bad information. What kind of bad information? Well, there are a few kinds. Number 1 is not being critical enough of your own play. Why am I losing? It's easy to say that the deck is bad, or this other deck is too good, or I got bad luck, or they top decked the win, those luck sacks. While randomness and luck do play a part in the game, I mean they have to, it's a card game, so a certain amount of randomness is inherent in it. In the vast majority of situations we lose, it's our own fault. And looking back and seeing the lines of play we took that were incorrect or maybe just not completely optimal is very important to growing and getting better. In a recent blog post, Star City Games Player of the Year points leader and TCG streamer Jeff Hoagland had this to say: "Today, I have some bad news for folks that play TCGs. Most of the matches you lose are your own fault. Sure, there are going to be a few matches here and there where you genuinely lose to variance, but if you think those losses are happening more than the ones where you made various mistakes, then you are not being critical enough of your own play. People often ask me how to improve as a TCG player to get to that next level where you are winning more matches than you are losing. Being critical of decisions you make every game, even the games you are winning, is the best way to do this. The things that make people who are good at TCGs good are not the games they win where everything is going according to plan. Those games are easy for novices and experts alike. It is the decisions the good players make in the games where things do not go their way that sets them apart. You make your own luck. Focus on making optimal plays so that when you do draw the right cards, you have put yourself in the best possible position to win. Regardless of the outcome, always look back on your matches and find things you could have done better or differently. Just food for thought." I will put a link in the description to this post for those of you who would like to read it or just reference it for yourselves. All that being said, it also needs to be understood that some decks are just too complex and may be beyond your current ability to play correctly. This is not an insult. Does this mean that you shouldn't play them? Of course not. How else are you going to get better? Just don't get frustrated when you can't get the same results as someone else who is either more familiar with the deck or is simply more skilled with it than you. Finally, I would like to end by saying, I'm not the greatest Magic the Gathering player. I know it's mind-boggling, but I still make a lot of mistakes, the biggest being taking multi-year breaks several times over the last 20 years. There was a time around 2006 when I would have gladly told you, yeah, I'm a pretty good Magic player. I was having a lot of success, top 80 or winning almost every tournament I played in, some of which included the very first Star City Games Open, the Bluegrass Open, and both constructed and limited state championships, as well as PTQs, and that's Pro Tour qualifiers for those of you who aren't familiar with that acronym. Unfortunately, health factors beyond my control forced me to leave the game at what was also, in my own opinion, the height of my Magic playing ability. But what was different back then than now? Well, I was playing and testing constantly, but not just playing and testing with other good players, trying to make the correct plays, evaluating each other, and taking different lines into consideration. You can't improve if you're playing against people who are worse than you all the time. I'm not there now. I just don't have the time and resources to dedicate to it anymore, and unfortunately Magic Duels is not really designed to be a competitive game. It's meant to be an introduction to Magic, so the rules and phases are simplified. Well, why not play Modo? That's real Magic with the full rules set. And for those of you unfamiliar with that term, MODO stands for Magic Online Digital Objects, and was the original name for Magic Online, another program released by Wizards of the Coast. Well, the long and short of it is, and all consideration of it having a bad interface and a lot of bugs aside, it costs a lot of money. Money that I don't have. I can afford to play paper Magic, or I can afford to play Modo, not both, and I choose paper every time. Still, Magic Duels is a good proxy. I like it. It actually has what I consider to be a better interface than Modo, and it doesn't cost me a fortune to play. Also, I like making videos for all of you, and I hope that you enjoy watching them. And for those of you who are wondering what rank I'm playing at, it varies. I lose a lot of ranks in testing, then gain them back, but I tend to stay in the upper 30s. I cut a lot of dead air out of my gameplay, so my rank is never really displayed. However, at this very moment, I am rank 40. I won't likely stay there. But no matter what your rank, your skill level, or reason for playing the game, if you are courteous to me and my community that I'm trying to build here, welcome to the family. If you can't be courteous, well, I'd rather you find someone else to watch, because neither I nor my viewers need the stress of dealing with you. And until next time, friends, be excellent to each other.